Well, hello everybody and welcome to this month's Agricology vlog from Daylesford. My name is Richard Smith and I'm the farm manager here. We've been in this field several times over the last 12 months, and regular viewers to the vlogs will recognise this field as being where we grew the oats this year, a cereal crop. They actually yielded 2 3/4 tonnes to the acre, which was really good. As with everybody else, we had a bit of a catchy time getting them harvested, but when they came they're really good and dry, so I'm very happy. We actually baled the straw off this and took the straw off, but straw is actually a very good way of getting a bit of potash back into the soils as an incorporation, but straw's at a real premium for us, and so we took it as a crop, baled it up and popped it in the shed there. This grass seed lay that we're standing on now, grass and clover, was established in the second week in September, really just because the weather was so catchy. I always think that here in our part of the country, last week in August, first week in September is a really reliable time to establish grass. I've tried it in the spring, but then if you get a dry spring, you can get into trouble. The other good way to establish grass lays is under a cereal crop, so to undersow a spring barley crop, for instance, is a very reliable way as well, because the cereal crop acts as the nurse crop to your grass lay. So we get a crop of barley. I sometimes might whole crop it or bale it, or if it's a good stand of barley and the grass is down, then obviously we'll harvest it and take the corn as well. And that's, you combine it, you think grass hasn't taken, give it a week or two with a light in it and a little bit of moisture, and away it goes. And clover performs very, very well under a cereal crop. So this was established back in the second week in September, so we're now October the 2nd, so it's been in about 3 weeks. It's established very well. There's a very even take of clover and grass across the whole lot. You may remember that this is quite heavy ground down here, so we actually subsoiled it, took the opportunity to subsoil it, and then we broke it up with a cultivator and then just gave it a light flick over with a rotaire, and then we established our grass with a 12-metre harrow. I like the harrow because it just gives you that little bit of tilth and it evenly spreads your grass onto the soil. Grass seed and clover seed is very expensive, and you know, I really want to see a good take first time off. Also really important that it's rolled in really tightly, so you'll notice in a grass lay normally the headlands will always come that little bit better than the rest of the field, and that's simply because you've turned on the headland all the way across the field and then rolled them, so it goes in really tight and often the headland will look a lot better. We wanted primarily today to talk about rotations, and rotations is a very difficult subject actually. This is quite a large farm, 2,500 acres farmed here in the Cotswolds. The north end of our farm is a very typical Cotswold brash, so it's a thin soil with a high incidence of limestone in it, high pHs. Come down to this end of the farm, soils are slightly more acidic and very, very heavy. So the rotation is kind of mini rotation within the different areas of the farm and the soil types. So on this heavy country, in this particular field, it was in a red clover lay for 3 years, and we've talked about red clover before. It's not just there for fertility. We use it to forage and create forage and conserve forage, and I fatten an awful lot of lambs on red clover with great ease. It's not a problem. A little bit of ryegrass in with the red clover will entice them to start munching on it, so what you'll notice is the lambs will flick across, eat the ryegrass, and then when you push them a little bit they'll come back and get onto the red clover, and they perform really, really well. So that was 3 years of a red clover lay. Then it went into a winter cereal, which was our winter oats. Now, if this was some of the better soils on the farm, I may have gone to a spring cereal as well and undersown it. Because grass is a real premium on our farm, you know, we're about meat and milk, I need to get that grass back in, so we opted on this heavier ground to go with this establishment of a grass lay early September, which works really well. Now obviously red clover is fixing nitrogen, it's a leguminous crop. Lots and lots of research done on it, and red clover is a fantastic way of creating a natural source of nitrogen in topsoils. There are lots of leguminous crops, but red clover in an organic system or in a less intensive system is a very good way of fixing that atmospheric nitrogen. will then go to a cereal crop, and as I said, if it's not undersown, that will then go to a white clover grass lay with that cereal break, and that's obviously very good for grazing sheep and animals, and we'll choose to put a mix of grasses in and clovers that give us a silage crop or a forage crop as well as a grazing lay. At this end of the farm again, and again it's about more uniqueness to this type of soil, this grass lay now will stay in until I think it's exhausted. I'll look after them well. Nobody's allowed to drive across fields in the winter on our farm, because if you upset the topsoil, break the topsoil, you'll actually get that weed bank going and start to get weed incorporation. So we look after them very well, but they will naturally exhaust themselves. You know, you don't know what type of winter you're going to have or how long the sheep are going to have to stand on here and puddle it up. But when they're worn out, then I'll take another cereal crop behind that. So the white clover again is leguminous, fixing this nitrogen. Plus your grass lay, you're building a bit of organic matter in the topsoil. So after white clover, so this might be in for 5 years now. It might only be in for 2 or 3. But if I can get it to do 5, that'll be great. Then it'll be ploughed in and we'll take another cereal crop and then start that whole rotation again. We have grown field beans very successfully some years and very unsuccessfully other years. So I've learned that if you can get onto higher, windier country, open country, that's better for the beans, because you know you're getting that air through and keeping disease out, not getting the dreaded chocolate spot. But beans of course are leguminous, and they can be an important part of the rotation. I've also grown lupins in the rotation, and lupins are of course a great source of protein. So a lupin can yield 30%, 35% protein, which of course is a great form of natural protein that we can perhaps feed to dairy cows. So that's this grass lay, and I really wanted to just come and have a look at this to show regular viewers, you know, this grass lay that has established itself in 3 to 4 weeks very successfully. So this is away now. I said before about weed control. There's obviously a few volunteers, bits of oak volunteer in here, but it's actually very clean. If it got dirty and I could get on it in October, I'd just top those weeds out. The grass will beat it every time. Don't worry, I wouldn't worry if I couldn't, because I'd just be on in the spring and topping out those weeds, and the grass will then beat it. So we're going to go off now and have a look at some red clover. Okay, so now we're up at the red clover, and as I said before, red clover plays a really important part in our rotation because of its ability to fix nutrient, atmospheric nitrogen. On this particular field, this is 80 acres, and this, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit because I said sort of red clover for 3 years and then into a cereal crop. But actually this is going into its 5th year next year, and it's been so productive that we've just been really reluctant to plough it out, and it's such a productive field. So we'll take 2 cuts of silage from this, and between this one and the field next door, which totals about 170 acres, you know, we'll fatten 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 lambs up until Christmas. So we're trying to look after it really well. There's a standing some older clover here that hasn't been chewed out, that's in flower, and later on, if the month stayed dry, I'd even combine my own seed off of that, and of course that's a great saving. But red clover plays a really important part. It also is very good at strangling out weeds. So it suppresses weeds beautifully, and if you're not getting weeds, they're not going to seed, and you're not getting more weeds. So red clover I'm a big fan of. Very hardy as well, so you can chew it out really tight and think that you've ruined it, and all of a sudden it'll come back again and away you go. And so next year I think seriously I'll have to consider taking this out, just because it'll been in for 5 years. But again, my point about being in particular soils on particular parts of the farm that perform well, this has been really, really productive, and red clover is really important in our rotation.